Welcome to the unveiling of the 21st team in this deep dive series, the San Antonio Spurs, where the youth movement is completely underway. Gone is DeMar DeRozan, gone is Rudy Gay, gone is LaMarcus Aldridge, and Patty Mills. This team is officially young. And what's great about this, while I liked DeMar DeRozan and I liked LaMarcus Aldridge, they just didn't have any championship aspirations on that team. They were lacking the star talent of a LeBron James, of a Giannis. So now that those two are gone and the floor has essentially come out from under this franchise, these young guys are going to eat up all those shots that DeMar DeRozan was taking. They're going to eat up all those isolation plays that were a no-pass, tough, contested mid-range game, and hopefully they're going to push forward into the modern era. No more fadeaway post shots from LaMarcus Aldridge. No more fadeaway twos from DeMar DeRozan. And while they do look beautiful and they do go in, they're just not the most efficient play in basketball anymore. And while the only thing to worry about with this San Antonio Spurs team is that they might be the sufferers of showing that there isn't a right way to be a losing franchise. A lot of people say, oh yeah, the Spurs, they're doing it the right way. They got a Kawhi Leonard, but then Kawhi Leonard said, nah, go fuck yourself. And so now they don't have that generational talent that they can lean on, so they're starting to rebuild again. And they have a lot of good enough talent on this team, a lot of DeJounte Murray, Derek White, and maybe that's going to prevent them from getting a really high pick, while at the same time not being the high quality enough teammates to get them to the promised land. Anyway, last season they ended up in the 19th power ranking spot, or last season's power rankings. They had a 33-39 record and finished 10th, final seed in that playing spot. And when they did go up against the Memphis Grizzlies, they just got outstar powered by none other than the man himself, Ja Morant, who is a stud. It's not the worst thing in the world that they lost the play-in to Ja Morant. There is no shame in that. As for this offseason moves, as said, they lost DeMar DeRozan in that interesting trade that brought over Thad Young, Al-Farouq Aminu, a first and I think a couple seconds as well, which was bizarre from the Bulls. I understand they had to do it to match the salaries, but it seems like they kind of gave up a lot for a guy who was already on his way out. They also lost Patty Mills, the pride and joy of the San Antonio Spurs. G'day, mate. Patty himself is no longer on the San Antonio Spurs, now going to the other team in the black and white jerseys out there in Brooklyn. And Patty Mills was a great clutch player. He was one of the final legends in their championship rosters, and he made some absolutely huge, timely buckets in their championship runs. They also lost Rudy Gay, and while he's not, this generational talent, he was a really good player who kind of just fit perfectly into the Spurs system. They dropped his minutes a lot, and he became a lot more efficient and became one of those leaders, older veteran players that every team wants to have on their team. I believe he's in Utah now. They also lost Trey Lyles and Gorgia Dang. Not too many big losses, but they did bring in, as stated, Al-Farouq Aminu and Thad Young, who are probably on their way out, but we'll talk about them in a second. They brought in 12th overall pick Joshua Primo, who we'll talk about. They brought in Dougie McBuckets on a little bit of an expensive contract, but then again, if you compare it against what Duncan Robinson got, it's really not that bad. Brought back the GOAT himself, Bryn Forbes, and they brought in Jacques Landau from Australia to bolster that center position. So here at the point guard ranking, they're going to come in at 18th with DeJounte Murray and Trey Jones, and to a lesser extent, Bryn Forbes. Now, DeJounte Murray is good, but he's just not a great player. I don't know if he's ever going to become a all-star player, but he's right below that, the tier just before that. He is an incredible mid-range game. He's elite, hitting 48% from 16 feet to the three-point line and 65% at the rim. He really worked on that game. Now, his three-pointer itself is still a work in progress. 31% last season, a little bit down from the previous where he shot 37%. But I was very impressed with his mid-range game. He was ahead of people in the likes of Steph Curry, Damian Lillard. He was .001 points behind DeMar DeRozan and Luka Doncic, who have very good mid-range games themselves. His 6'10" wingspan was incredible to help him finish at the rim, and he was one of the few shot creators on this team besides, Derek White and DeMar DeRozan, who's no longer on the team. He's a very good rebounding guard, evidenced by his 7.1 rebounds per game. But as for his negatives, he's a little loose with his handle, but he has a solid 3-to-1 turnover ratio, so I wouldn't worry too much about it, but it was just something that I noticed. He would frequently mishandle the ball, make an errant pass, and that just comes down to the fact that he's not really a great facilitator. He's not a point god. But the good thing about being on the San Antonio Spurs is that Greg Popovich is always able to put his players in the best position to succeed. And while Murray is a slash and kick kind of offensive player, Greg Popovich used him to the fullest extent of his talents. And of course, he is a great defender at 6'5" with that 6'10" wingspan. To their backup point guard, Trey Jones, the rookie from Duke, he was a very good passer coming out, pass first almost to a fault, and has a serious shot issue. Last year, he shot 5 3-pointers and made 3 of them, hence his false 60% from the three-point line average. In fact, he only shot 78 shots the entire year last year. Also, coming out of college, he was a very poor finisher, but that's one of the things that he's turned into his strength. And that's a really nice thing to see from a young kid like him, is that they have these weaknesses coming out of college. And we always say, oh, what if Giannis gets a jump shot? Oh, what if Ben Simmons gets a jump shot? Oh, what if this guy learns how to finish at the paint? And this guy fixed one of his weaknesses, and he became a very good finisher around the rim with nice touch. He has no pull-up dribble shot to threaten a defender with, so that's going to be a bit of a problem once they get to the better defending teams. But then in the summer league, he was an absolute legend. I think he dropped 34 in one of the games. He had like a 34, 8, 9, kind of crazy James Harden looking stat line. So you know the talent is in there somewhere. He's, of course, not very athletic because he's a San Antonio Spur, but he plays very good on-ball defense for his size. He's undersized in today's switch everything basketball at only 6'1", but he plays good on-ball defense. He just needs to work on his team defense. He was a little late on switches, would make the wrong play that would lead to the other team getting a wide open basket. Of course, that's going to come with just being a rookie, and I expect him to only get better, and I would be perfectly fine having him as a backup point guard on my team. Bringing us to Bryn Forbes. Not really a backup point guard, but he's only 6'2", and the Spurs don't really have anybody else to be a backup point guard, so I'm sticking him here. He is back in San Antonio, coming from Milwaukee, and honestly, he shot 45% from the three-point line in the regular season. That is an incredible stat line. And then in the playoffs, you know, when it matters the most, when your three-point shooters need to make buckets, he was an absolute brick. His three-point percentage dropped 10%. And because he's a poor defender, not only because of his size, but just the fact that he doesn't defend very well in the first place, he's gonna get benched. And it was surprising because the Bucks were missing Dante DiVincenzo. They needed those shooting guard minutes and three-point shooting space in the floor to get filled in by somebody, and Pat Connaughton won the spot from Bryn Forbes, and they just never looked back. So I'm not really sure what he's gonna be able to bring to this team other than three-point shooting and saying that he won a championship. Bringing us to the shooting guard position, they're coming in at 24th with Derek White. Now, last year was a bit of an off year. He had injuries and he struggled to perform as well as he did in the bubble. But he's a very quality, high floor kind of off-ball guard that does a little bit of everything well. He's a good shooter. He's a nice, easy shot stroke. He's a decent playmaker. He's a good defender. He was just, hampered by injuries and bad hair this season. He's not a very athletic player because, he's on the Spurs, but he makes up for it with very smart, very heady plays. He's just the ultimate Spur, and he provides a really solid defensive backcourt with DeJounte Murray. At 27, he's just going to be hitting his prime, so expect to see this kind of, like I said, high floor, low ceiling shooting guard minutes. And while he's not the worst thing in the world, I think he could be a solid 4th or 5th option on a championship roster. Bringing us to Devin Vassell, the young blood from Florida State. He showed some very solid 3D potential last season. Now, he only shot 34.7% from the three-point line. I only expect that to get better in this upcoming season. And he played some very good defense for this team. He made some incredible reads, and he has those long arms that let him jump passing lanes and was able to contest and block many shots as well. Now, last year, he wasn't a very good shooter, only having a 52% true shooting percentage, but we still believe, and he even showed signs this summer of being able to shoot off the dribble. He scored 20 points a game in the summer league. Now, okay, he shot 36% from the field and a horrible 7% from the three-point line. He made 20 points a game on 23 field goal attempts a game, so obviously not a great sign, but at the same time, he still was able to put up buckets for his team. And it's just going to be interesting to watch this kid grow. I hope they start him and Keldon Johnson in the starting lineup this upcoming season. Speaking of Keldon Johnson, he's going to be coming in here at the 19th ranking. And when I say Keldon Johnson, I should say USA representative gold medal winning Keldon Johnson. That experience was probably great for him in the Olympics, getting to see Kevin Durant just do his thing, getting to see what Draymond Green brings to a team that is besides scoring. He is a big, strong kid. He is undersized. I think he's about 6'5" if he's trying to be a power forward, which is kind of what his game is. But he's a very aggressive player. He attacks the boards, and you gotta love his energy on the court. He's not very creative when he has the ball. He's not a great driver, and he doesn't shoot the three very well. At this point, he either shoots a three, 33% last season, or when he drives, he puts his head down and just makes a beeline for the basket, which teams can frequently sniff out and either draw a charge or force him into a bad shot. But the dude is just active. He flies around the court. He's energy on the glass. And if he gets that three-point percentage up, the floor is really going to open up for him on the offense because teams were sagging off of him, daring him to shoot the three. Moving on to the center position, and they're a little low at 21st. I understand that. But I kind of like Jakob Poeltl as a sort of league average big man. He sets screens well. He has a big body. He can rebound. He just doesn't give you that much offensively. He's not a very creative player. And who would have thunk when they traded away Kawhi Leonard for DeMar DeRozan and then some guy named Jakob Poeltl that he would have been the longer tenured Spur out of the two? He gives them solid minutes, 8.6 points a game, 7.9 rebounds, 61% true shooting. He had a little bit of a Rashawn Holmes floater, but he just doesn't bring that much offensively. What I was really surprised to see defensively is his rim protection. It was incredible last season. He had a career year. He was 6th in the NBA in blocks, 1.8 blocks a game last season, which is really good for the Spurs. Hopefully he continues that into this upcoming season. Onto his backup, Drew Eubanks. Drew, give it to Eubanks. While he's not the smartest defender, I saw him miss defending the paint on a wide open drive because he was too busy guarding Dwight Howard on the three-point line instead. He's one of those high effort, high energy, undersized centers at 6'9" who just can't shoot, and he's too short and he can't jump. He gets easily bested by verticality. That said, he's still a nice, high-energy, go-after-the-rebound kind of player, which every team needs. The only problem is that they don't have any three-point shooting, as you see by the fact that Drew Eubanks shot 2 threes last season and Jakob Poeltl shot 0, which is why they brought in from Australia the unknown man, Jacques Landale. I don't know how to say his name. He's from Australia. I couldn't even find PER and win shares in the NBL out there, but they brought him in on a, I believe, 2-year deal, and he's a guy who can shoot the three. I hear he's a supposedly tough player. Honestly, I couldn't find any clips, any footage of him besides, generic highlights that do nothing for me. But I think he's going to take that Gorgia Dieng place last year where he spreads the floor from the 5 position. Shot very solid at about 39% from the 3 last year. And it looks like he's going to earn some minutes on this Spurs organization because they're a very 3-point needy team. If you look at the wings and you look at the point guard players, nobody really knows how to shoot the 3, which is why they went out and gave Dougie McBuckets a whole bunch of money. Bringing us to their bench ranking last season where they were a tick below average at 16th. Not too bad. They have Lonnie Walker, who got relegated to the bench after a slightly unimpressive sophomore season. And this is his final year of his contract. He has to perform if he's going to try to earn some major NBA dollars. It's always frustrating with him because he has the athletic traits. He has the talent. But what kind of player is he? Is he going to be a 3-and-D guy? Is he going to be an elite slasher? Is he going to be a playmaker? Sometimes on the court, he looks like Damian Lillard. Sometimes he looks like Russell Westbrook. And then other times he looks like some guy at the YMCA. At this point, though, in his career, he kind of looks like he's closer to a Hami Diallo than a really an all-star caliber player. I guess his ceiling would be, Jordan Clarkson, good scoring off the bench. He can really heat up shooting the ball. He just had trouble finding a consistent role on his team. In his rookie year, he got in Greg Popovich's doghouse, and then he's just struggled to find that confidence and find his footing after that in the league. He might be one of those guys that should go to a new team, get a fresh start over mentally, and just play his game. He has issues with playmaking. He can shoot fine, and he can drive fine, but he's unable to play make when he gets caught in the air. He's unable to make the right basketball play. He lacks creativity in his drives, and often I'd see him just throw up a contested fall away floating shot at the rim that would inevitably miss. But he's still only 22 years old. There is still so much room to grow. And when a guy has this kind of freakish athletic talent, a team is going to take a risk on him, even if he doesn't work out in San Antonio. Now, fun fact, he's one of the lowest rated defenders in the league last year. Came in at 3rd worst defensive rating despite his athletic talents. And his defense is almost funny bad. He can defend other players and move his feet well. He has the talents and the traits. He's always just a step behind them. When somebody cuts, he doesn't realize what happens until that crucial first step and a half is already passed and he's already playing catch up and he fouls or they get a wide open shot. When somebody fakes, he falls for it. The little things that you pay attention to for good defenders, he always seems to miss. Those mental errors are what's holding him back from becoming a truly solid, good player. Signed to a nice deal is Dougie McBuckets. You know who he is. He shoots 40% from the 3-point line for his career, which this team really desperately needs. He could be one of the starters if they do, I guess you would say DeJounte Murray, Derek White, Dougie McBuckets, Keldon Johnson kind of starting 4. I always would rather see Dougie McBuckets as much as we love his nickname coming off the bench, but he is solid shooting that any team could use. He'll stretch out the floor for the team and just open up driving lanes for the slashers on this roster. Is he overpaid? Generally, what you want to do when you're rebuilding a team is get those draft picks, hopefully bring in a superstar free agent or two, and then pay everybody and dip into luxury tax. Naturally, there are workarounds, so a $14 million a year deal isn't going to break your franchise. But honestly, $14 million a year for Dougie McBuckets kind of seems like a little bit of an overpay. On to Joshua Primo, and I have this as a super reach, a mega buzz pick, and I know there's some Joshua Primo truthers out there. The first game he played in the G League, he was pretty solid, and everybody said, see, Joshua Primo's legit. And Man, I think in my grades of the draft, I gave it a D or a F. I really didn't think that he should have gone 12th overall. I had a early second round grade on him. Supposedly the Spurs like his shot creation ability because that's something they're desperately lacking on the team. But at 12, there were so many better options available. And just because he was the youngest player in the draft doesn't mean you fucking go out and draft this guy with your only first round pick. But the blurb I had on him was, despite watching the kids tape, I wasn't able to come away with much. His main game was catch and shoot threes, which he hit at a solid clip despite his quirky shot mechanics. He gets shot greedy at times and will either take bad jumpers or drive without any thought of making the right pass, often settling for a bad contested layup. He has decent body control, but lacks true athleticism and verticality to save him when he finishes in the paint. His dribble can be lazy, and he has no conscience when shooting, a little bit Kyle Kuzma-like. I did notice that despite going for frequent putback dunks, he will shy away from contact and make shots tougher than they need to be if he just went into the defender's body. Defensively, he's a meh. His average foot speed will take bad angles and get beat by first steps frequently. He will miss the occasional rotation, and his size makes him viable to guard bigger guards or even forwards if necessary. But he is ridiculously young and will have ample time to grow if he goes to a good organization, and what organization is better than the San Antonio Spurs? At this point, it just feels like the Spurs should do what soccer does, where they draft somebody who's like 14 years old and just develop him for 10 years before he sees the court. So Joshua Primo's growth is going to be interesting for this team. Moving on to Lucas Sandwich. He needs to continue to develop. He got absolutely buried on the depth chart last year with the breakout emergence of Keldon Johnson, and I think Trey Lyles was in front of him. Of course, Jakob Poeltl, Drew give it to Eubanks, Devin Vassell. He was kind of in that third lineup with Keita Bates-Diop, and it was you just didn't really get to see him play much. And he was okay when he was on the court. He needs to continue to shoot the three better. He shot 37% his rookie season, which then dropped to 28% last season. Of course, when you look at the numbers, you say, oh, he was pretty good. No. So his rookie year, he shot 3 of 8. And then last season, he shot 12 of 43 from the three-point line. He could find some minutes as a stretch 5 if he bulks up a bit. There's some good images of him bulking up this offseason on Spurs Twitter. But he has very slow feet, so I don't think he's viable to be a stretch 4 wing player. He's kind of one of those guys stuck without a position, not athletic enough to be a modern 4, not strong enough to be a stretch 5, can't shoot well enough from deep to be put in as a spot-up shooter, so he's just kind of lacking that one true place where he can earn minutes on a roster. On a Keita Bates-Diop, solid player, he just can't shoot. He has no three-point shot, he has no mid-range shot, he just, I don't think he's going to see minutes in any meaningful games unless he learns how to add some semblance of offense to his game. Also, here is Zach Collins bringing him in. It was a sneaky pick. He has a 3-year, $21 million deal. I believe the specifics are on that, but only $10 million of it is guaranteed. The first year, fully guaranteed. The second year, half guaranteed. And the third year is a non-guaranteed contract. Given his injury history, the Spurs are taking a little bit of a risk on him, but they do have the ability to cut him after basically year 2. When he's played, he showed signs of being a very good stretch 4, stretch 5, and he's a great teammate and he brings energy to his team. So the best organization in the NBA, keeping everybody except Kawhi Leonard healthy, picks him up. I think this is going to be a perfect match. Hopefully he finds some minutes on the court and shows us what he can really do. Signed to the 2-way contract is their, I think, second-round pick, Joe Wieskamp. He's a, fine three-point shooter, one of those white guys who can't move his feet to save his life, but Duncan Robinson got paid, so there's a spot there for good three-point shooters. I personally would have drafted Sam Hauser out of Virginia better, but as an awkward three-point shooting white guy, I'm sure he will find his way onto the court at some point. Bringing us to the final 2 players, and I really think these guys are going to be cut. First of all, Al-Farouq Aminu is definitely going to get cut. He had his career worst year from 3 last season, and despite only being 30 years old, it kind of looks like he's aging out of the NBA. He only played 41 games these last 2 seasons and shot a putrid 21% from the three-point line. Thad Young as well could be on his way out. Lots of rumors of him going to, I think, the Suns or the Celtics. Just a lot of teams showing interest in him, and for good reason. He had a career year last year. If you look at his per 36 numbers, he had his best year since his prime Philadelphia Brooklyn days. He shot the ball well, was incredibly aggressive in the post, and while his three-pointer was absolutely no good, he will provide veteran leadership to any team and solid power forward minutes. Now, in the old days, I think the Spurs would have kept him around and got rid of like Zach Collins or Lucas Sandwich, but I feel like at this point, they're going full youth movement, and they don't want veteran leadership anymore. They have that in Deontay Murray and Derek White. They have their culture. They don't need Thad Young, so I expect them to send him away for some draft compensation. Bringing us to that culture ranking, which I kept harping on about in these various picks that I just don't believe in, but I believe in the Spurs. The coach and culture ranking for the San Antonio Spurs is, no surprise, number 1. Now, Greg Popovich is probably the best coach in the NBA right now. I'm kind of starting to be out on him. I hear a lot of people saying, "Oh, we don't really like him anymore. Oh, we don't." He had 4 Hall of Famers. He had Duncan and Kawhi, first ballot Hall of Famers. He had Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili. How good of a coach is he really? But regardless, the San Antonio culture is just undeniable. It's almost a little New England Patriots-ish, where they focus on minimalizing mental errors. They always put their players in the best position to succeed. Just his interviews are so crude, and he always seems to shit on his players and build the other team's players up consistently. And I really don't have anything to go on besides gut feeling. He's better than 98% of the other head coaches, but I just can't help feeling a little underwhelmed by his performances since the Kawhi, we'll call it incident. And they've failed to attract free agents to San Antonio. So I understand Texas, football state, they hate women, but there's no income tax. The weather is nice, and other than infringing on women's rights, it's not too bad out there. And from the top, this culture is legit. They have the GM, Brian Wright, and of course the CEO. Everything goes by him, R.C. Buford, who's just been incredible. These draft picks they've had have really turned out well from him. If you just look back to 2014, they had the 30th overall pick, and they took Kyle Anderson, now a starter in Memphis. 2015, they had the 26th overall pick and took nobody who did nothing, Nikola Molotov. Then the next year, they took Dejounte Murray. Then the next year, they took Derek White. Then the next year, they took Lonnie Walker. Then the next year, they took Lucas Sandwich and Keldon Johnson. Then last year, they took Devin Vassell. And this year, they took Josh Primo. And they didn't have any top 10 picks out of all those, and yet still they've constructed a full roster. You got to give their culture its due. The Spurs way is legit. Bringing us to their season projections, and they're projected to win 28.5 wins this season. And I think I'm a little higher on this team, which might be a bad thing. They're projected to be a top 10 pick, 12th seed in the Western Conference, but I have them being more of like an 8 to 12, struggling to get into that play-in spot again this year. And this is one of those teams that's stuck in that purgatory where they need their alpha now that Kawhi Leonard is gone. There's a lot of pretty good players on their team, but there's no real all-stars. There's no next level. This guy is going to be the franchise cornerstone. And I hope I'm wrong on this because everything is right in the NBA when the Spurs are competing for a championship. And I just want to leave you on this little tidbit, interesting fact that they have. They have 3 of the top 7 worst rated defenders last year in defensive ratings. They have Bryn Forbes, who was the literal worst defender last year, Lonnie Walker, who was the 3rd worst defender last year, and Dougie McBuckets, who was the 7th worst defender. And I'm just going to leave you with that, with this 21st overall team in this Deep Dive Series Power Rankings. Let me know what you think, what you agree with, what you disagree with, and I'll catch you in the next one where we unveil the 20th ranked team.